I never thought a single signature could erase everything I worked for, but here I am, standing in the backyard where I used to play as a child. The wind whipping my hair, leaves skittering across the cracked pavement, my hands trembling as I clutched the letter that destroyed my life. My name is Emily Carson, 27, and I thought I knew my family. Thought loyalty meant something, but betrayal hides in the quietest corners. Grandfather, the man who taught me how to ride a bike and called me his favorite, changed the family name in all the records without telling anyone, and with it he erased my inheritance, the house, the savings, even the little trust fund I thought was mine by right. I pace, the grass wet beneath my shoes, imagining his smug face as he watched me scramble to make sense of this injustice. My chest tight, thoughts racing, heart hammering with anger and disbelief. The air smells like rain and broken dreams, and every flash of lightning through the old oak makes me flinch. Reminding me of nights he told me stories, never hinting at the control he held over our lives. I feel both young and helpless, yet there is a fire I cannot suppress, a stubborn part of me that refuses to fold, that wants to fight, that refuses to be invisible in the history he is rewriting. My mind races with questions. What gave him the power to do this? What loopholes did he exploit? How could someone I loved so deeply become a silent enemy with a single stroke of the pen? My stomach twisting with the realization that nothing is permanent. That trust can vanish in the filing of paperwork, and loyalty is often just a memory. I breathe deeply, trying to steady the storm inside, wondering how I will reclaim what is rightfully mine, yet fearing that every step forward may reveal more secrets, more manipulation, and that the grandfather I adored is now a man who will stop at nothing to erase me. I hear the creak of the gate, a sound that makes my pulse quicken, and I know that someone is coming, someone with answers or perhaps more lies, and the next moment could change everything, could force me to face truths I am not ready to see. For now, I stand in the wet grass, hands trembling, eyes scanning the horizon, heart torn between rage and fear, waiting for the next move. And if you want to follow my fight and see if justice can be reclaimed, hit that subscribe button and join me on this journey. I remember sitting at the kitchen table the morning after I discovered the changes to the family records, the sunlight streaming through the dusty blinds, catching the coffee cup I barely touched as my mind replayed every conversation, every smile, every small slight that I had ignored over the years, wondering if I had been blind or if the betrayal had always been there, hidden behind polite nods and empty compliments. My mother, a woman who always smiled but rarely spoke the truth, had warned me about grandfather, saying he valued control over connection. Yet I had brushed it off as old grievances, childish bitterness, thinking that love could override selfishness. Yet here I was, learning the hard way that family history could be rewritten at the stroke of a pen. My friends at work, colleagues who admired my determination and tenacity, called me resilient, unaware that the weight I carried went far beyond office politics. That my heart felt like it was walking a tightrope over a canyon of secrets, one wrong move away from disaster. Then, there is my aunt, grandfather's daughter, whose quiet smiles often masked her own ambitions, her own subtle manipulations, and who had always cast side glances at me during family dinners, a look that made me wonder if she had known more than she let on. If she had whispered ideas into grandfather's ear that led to this moment. Even my boyfriend, a man who believed in fairness and justice, looked at me with concern, as if I was carrying an invisible wound he could not reach. Yet I sensed that the strain of my family situation was pushing him toward a decision he had not yet voiced, a choice that might test loyalty and love in ways neither of us were prepared for. I replay every holiday, every milestone, every smile and frown, searching for patterns. Searching for the moment when the fracture in our family became wide enough to swallow me, realizing that ambition and fear often hide behind familiar faces, that love and resentment are sometimes indistinguishable until the damage is done. My career, my friendships, my quiet moments of solitude all feel tinged with this invisible tension, as if the world I had built for myself was now haunted by shadows I cannot name, and I wonder how much of who I am is my own and how much is shaped by the people around me, by their unspoken judgments, their calculated kindness, their careful every glance from my mother feels loaded, every compliment from my aunt feels Measured every suggestion from my colleagues feels like advice or warning, and I cannot shake the feeling that the next move I make will reveal more truths than I am ready to handle. That every choice carries weight, not only for me but for the people who watch me closely, for the legacy that grandfather thought he could control with a signature, and for the part of me that refuses to bend or vanish quietly. As I sit back, my fingers tracing the edge of the coffee cup, I know that the path ahead is filled with hidden obstacles, subtle rivalries, and unexpected alliances, and that navigating family, friendship, and ambition will demand a strength I am still discovering. And if you want to see how I uncover the truths and confront these hidden tensions, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join me for what comes next. I did not expect to find the envelope tucked behind the stack of old bills, yellowed at the edges, sealed with a wax stamp that carried grandfather's insignia. Yet there it was, and the moment I touched it, my stomach twisted into knots. Because I knew that what I was holding could change everything again. Could confirm the suspicions that had been gnawing at me since I first saw the records. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing letters, legal documents, and a journal entry in grandfather's precise handwriting, each word dripping with intent. Carefully crafted to hide motives while guiding outcomes, and I realized that this was not just a mistake, not just a whim, but a calculated plan to redirect the family legacy away from me. A maneuver that left me unprotected and vulnerable. I thought about my mother, the woman who always warned me but rarely acted, wondering if she had helped, if she had turned a blind eye because loyalty had become more about obedience than love. And then I thought of my aunt, her quiet smiles now sinister in memory, and I wondered how many of my family members were playing roles I could not yet read, how many were watching and waiting for me to make a mistake. At work I felt the creeping unease of colleagues who seemed overly curious, their questions lingering longer than necessary, and I could not help but imagine connections forming, whispers, spreading, my personal crisis becoming a spectacle in spaces I could not control, and the pressure was mounting. Each interaction a subtle reminder that I was now a target in more ways than one. My heart hammered as I thought about choices, the moral dilemma twisting in my mind. Do I confront grandfather directly and risk burning every bridge, or do I quietly gather evidence, risking that someone else might act before I am ready, reshaping my life without my consent while I remain sidelined in the shadow of manipulation? I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking of nights spent dreaming of fairness, of hope, of family bonds, and now those dreams felt fragile, like glass waiting to shatter, because love had been weaponized, trust had been traded for control. And the people I thought I knew were actors on a stage where the script was written without me. The dilemma is not simple, not linear, because every option carries risk. And every risk carries consequences that could ripple across my career, my friendships, my emotional stability, and the legacy that I had thought was mine to inherit. As I folded the documents back into the envelope, my hands trembling, I realized that this was only the beginning, that the game had shifted, and that my choices in the next hours could determine whether I reclaim what is mine or watch it vanish into another name, another life. I do not belong to outside. The wind rattles the window panes, echoing the uncertainty inside. And I know someone will knock soon, someone with answers or perhaps more traps. And the next step I take could be a turning point or a disaster. Yet I cannot freeze, cannot retreat, cannot let fear win. Because the fight is already here, and if you want to witness how I navigate this moral maze and confront hidden agendas, hit that subscribe button and stay with me as the story unfolds. My mother walked past me in the hall without a word, her silence heavier than accusations, and I wondered if she was weighing the cost of loyalty against truth. While my aunt smiled in a way that felt sharp, predatory even, as though she relished the turmoil that had started, her gaze promising secrets and schemes that I could not yet decipher. At work, colleagues noticed my distraction, whispers trailing me down hallways, questions I could not answer. And suddenly, the sanctuary of my career felt fragile, like glass, ready to splinter. Because no one could understand the gravity of a family war that had just spilled into every aspect of my life. And every conversation carried the weight of strategy, suspicion, and unspoken alliances. Financially, the documents revealed loopholes, and I realized that attempting to reclaim my inheritance could trigger audits, legal battles, and public scrutiny, risks that could leave me exposed and vulnerable. And yet inaction felt worse. And the tension in my chest grew with every tick of the clock. I felt torn, balancing ethics, ambition, and emotion, wondering if exposing deception would protect me or destroy the fragile bonds that remain. And every night I lay awake, imagining confrontations, betrayals, and the repercussions of decisions that seemed to multiply with each passing hour, until sleep became a fleeting memory, replaced by the steady pulse of anxiety and determination. And yet refusing to retreat into fear, because the fight was mine, and waiting would only give advantage to those who had plotted in silence. A figure stepping out that I did not recognize yet, whose presence made my pulse spike, because I knew nothing about their intent, and the sudden possibility of another player in this family drama made everything more uncertain, more dangerous, more alive. And I realized that the escalation I had feared was no longer abstract. It had arrived at my doorstep, testing every decision I had made, every alliance I had considered, and every step I might take next. And if you want to see how I face these rising stakes, confront hidden motives, and navigate the uncertainty that surrounds me, hit that subscribe button and join me as the story continues to unfold. I never thought a single envelope could change the way I saw everything. Yet here I am, sitting on the living room floor, the rain tapping on the windows, shaking as I unfold papers that make my head spin. Because what I discovered is more than a manipulation, more than a signature on a legal form. It is a revelation that turns every assumption I held inside out. My grandfather, the man I thought was the architect of my erasure, had not acted alone, and the letters revealed that my aunt, the one who smiled with subtle amusement at every family gathering, had orchestrated the shift in records, guiding him with whispered suggestions, promises, and veiled threats. A hidden partner in a scheme I never imagined, and suddenly the person I had trusted most in my family feels like the one who delivered the deepest betrayal. My mother, who I thought had been blind to everything, had received fragments of this plan years ago, deciding to remain silent, and the weight of that knowledge crushes me, leaving a cold emptiness where love and trust should have been. Because the family I believed was a sanctuary now feels like a labyrinth of hidden agendas, each turn more dangerous than the last. I stare at the signatures, the annotations, the meticulous notes that map every financial move, and I feel shock, disbelief, and a simmering resolve, because now I understand the stakes in a way I never did before. And yet the emotional blow is immediate, hitting me with a force that makes my legs shake and my chest ache, reminding me that betrayal is a precise, cutting thing, and it often comes from the closest people. I remember every dinner, every conversation, every subtle glance, replaying interactions in my mind, realizing how carefully the threads had been woven to keep me unaware, how expertly the narrative had been manipulated to make me doubt myself. And I feel both anger and sorrow, a cocktail of emotions that threatens to paralyze me, because knowing the truth changes nothing unless I act, and acting carries risks I am only beginning to grasp. Outside, thunder rumbles across the sky, and for a moment the world feels aligned with the chaos inside. Each strike of lightning a mirror to the shock in my mind, as I contemplate next steps, realizing that I am now a player in a much larger game than I imagined, where every choice could tip the balance, and the people I thought I could read are now shadows hiding intentions I may never fully understand. I clutch the documents tightly, my fingers trembling, my mind racing through possibilities, wondering who else might be involved. Who else has shaped my fate from behind closed doors? And whether I can confront this betrayal without losing the last fragments of my family or my own sense of self. And then I hear a knock on the door, sharp and deliberate, a sound that carries both promise and threat. And I know that the next encounter will demand courage I am not sure I have, yet I cannot turn away, because the truth is here, and the game is only beginning. And if you want to see how I face the revelations, uncover hidden conspiracies, and decide what steps to take next, hit that subscribe button and join me as everything I thought I knew is challenged. I sat on the edge of the garden wall, rain soaking my hair, heart hammering, the envelope of revelations still clutched in my hands, knowing that this moment would define everything I had fought for, every risk I had taken, every relationship I had tried to protect or salvage. Because now the choice was mine alone, and the consequences could ripple through my life in ways I could barely imagine. Confront grandfather and my aunt directly, exposing their manipulation, risking family collapse, public embarrassment, and the possibility that bridges I needed for support would be burned. Or quietly gather evidence, play my cards carefully, and reclaim my inheritance without confrontation, but allow deceit and betrayal to continue unchecked in the shadows, a victory without acknowledgement, a hollow justice. My mother approached silently, her face pale, her eyes full of unspoken regret and fear, and I realized that whatever decision I made would hurt her. Just as it would hurt the aunt whose smiles had once felt harmless, now a reminder of cunning and ambition. And even my own career and friendships could be impacted by a scandal or a misstep if I misjudged timing or tone. I breathed deeply, weighing strategy against morality, ambition against loyalty, emotion against practicality. And I felt the storm within me matching the storm outside, the sky cracking with thunder as though echoing my inner turmoil, reminding me that hesitation now could be just as dangerous as action. Because once the first move is made, there is no turning back. I imagined the look on grandfather's face if I exposed the plan, the quiet satisfaction my aunt might feel if I faltered, the relief my mother might experience if I chose caution, and the respect I might earn from myself if I acted with courage and intelligence. And suddenly every angle was alive with tension. Every choice, a knife with edges on both sides, threatening to wound someone I cared for or myself. After what felt like hours, but was only moments, clarity came in a flash, a strange calm within the chaos, and I knew that the only path I could walk without losing myself was to confront them not with anger, but with evidence, reasoning, and unwavering resolve. To force truth into the light even if it shattered illusions and tested loyalties, because I had reached the point where silence meant complicity and I refused to be complicit in the rewriting of my own life. I stood, shaking but resolute, rain dripping down my face. Shoulders squared against fear, heart full of both dread and determination. And I walked toward the house, knowing that the next words I spoke would ignite reactions I could not fully predict, alliances I could not fully control, and consequences I could not fully escape. Yet I felt a strange empowerment in claiming agency over my story, my inheritance, and my family. And if you want to see what happens when I confront betrayal, challenge hidden agendas, and face the moral and emotional fallout of my choice, hit that subscribe button, and stay with me as everything comes to a head in ways that no one expects. I sit on the porch now, the sun setting over the backyard where so much of my childhood was spent. The garden quiet, the wind soft against my face, and I feel a weight lifting even as memories linger. Because the confrontation is over, the truths have been spoken, and the family dynamics that once felt like a storm I could not navigate are finally clearer, if not perfect. Grandfather and my aunt faced the consequences of their actions. Not in violence or destruction, but in the quiet accountability of exposed secrets. And my mother, once silent, chose to stand with honesty and support, reminding me that loyalty is more than obedience, it is courage and integrity. I reflect on every choice I made, every risk I took, every moment I doubted myself, and I realized that the most important lesson is not about inheritance or wealth but about understanding who I am, where my boundaries lie, and how much strength it takes to face deception without letting it destroy your sense of self. Trust is fragile, I have learned, and it is earned, not assumed. And the people around us may surprise us in ways that hurt or heal. But holding on to your own principles is the only way to navigate a world where ambition, fear, and love collide. I think about the fear I felt, the uncertainty, the temptation to retreat or ignore the manipulation. And I understand that courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting despite fear. And sometimes that means standing alone until others are willing to step forward with honesty. The inheritance that once seemed like the prize now feels secondary to the clarity and resolve I have gained. Because material gain without integrity is hollow, and lessons learned through trial and consequence carry a value that no signature or document could ever replace. I look at the garden, the empty swing set, the worn path I walked while grappling with betrayal and moral dilemmas, and I feel a calm acceptance, a quiet pride, and an understanding that life is about choices, consequences, and reflection. About navigating complexity with both heart and mind, and about recognizing that even the closest bonds must be tested to reveal their true strength. I think about the audience watching this story, wondering how they would respond if faced with a similar betrayal, a similar moral crossroad, and I pose the question directly, not as a challenge but as a reflection. What would you have done in my place? How would you weigh loyalty against justice, love against principle, fear against courage? Because these are the moments that define us, not the victories or losses alone. As the sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the yard, I feel a sense of closure, a sense that while the past shaped me and the confrontation tested me, I now carry the lessons forward with clarity, ready to face the future with discernment and strength. And if you want to reflect on choices, boundaries, and the complexity of family and see how honesty and courage can reshape your path, hit that subscribe button and join me for stories that challenge, inspire, and remind us all of the power of truth and integrity.